Okay.
Getting the copy. You finished the other copy.
Yes. We're on the Antya-lila now. Namashreshtam manumapi sachiputram atraswarupam rupam tasya grajam urupurim maturim gostavitim radhakundam girivaram aho radhika madhavasam prapto yasya pratita kripaya shri gurum tam natosmi. So we're reading from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Antya-lila, Volume 1, Verse 1, having finished Madhya-lila yesterday, with Kaviraj Goswami summarizing Madhya-lila, how it covers the 6 years of Mahaprabhu's travels and public preaching. It's essentially the preaching phase of Mahaprabhu, which began proper with the arrival of Nityananda Prabhu in Navadvip, and then took on a new flavor with Mahaprabhu's taking of sannyas, which is the beginning of the Madhya-lila. So Mahaprabhu's sannyas preaching lila is the Madhya-lila, and much of the theme is the bringing conversion to bhakti of people of various other conceptions, spiritual conceptions, including Mayavad. The verse Apmaramas Chamunayo Nigrantapirukrame Kurvantya Hoitakim Bhaktim Itambuta Guno Harihi features prominently in the Madhya-lila. It features at the very beginning and the very end. So the Madhya-lila is like sandwich between that verse. And that is the bringing to the conception of bhakti from one who is self-satisfied, perhaps in the Mayavad conception. There's a sense of self-satisfaction in the self-realization, Atmagyan, but Mahaprabhu, through the influence of Mahaprabhu, that has taken a step further, and bhakti is introduced. So that's a very prominent theme in the Madhya-lila. And as Kaviraj Goswami says, it covers his South India tour, his tour to Bengal, his visit to Bengal, when he revisits Sachimata, meets Rupa and Sanatan and Ram Kelly, and then goes to Vrindavan successfully, spends a few months in Vrindavan, comes back from Vrindavan, teaches Rupa and Sanatan consecutively, Rupa first, then Sanatan, and liberates, we can say, or converts the Mayavadi sannyasis of Varanasi and the wider populace of Varanasi, and then returns to Jagannath Puri, and that's where the Madhya-lila finishes. So now we begin the Antya-lila.
How often did you go to Vrindavan?
Once. Just once. He made an attempt to go first after returning from South India, spending a few months in Puri. Returns from South India after about 2 years away. And then at some stage makes an attempt to go to Vrindavan. Whether the year he returns, probably not, because Guru Maharaj says that he returns to Navadvip after 5 years of being away, when talking about the Koladvip pastimes of aparad bhanjan, breaking of the forgiveness of the aparads, which is a prominent theme of Mahaprabhu's, the prominent theme, pretty much, of Mahaprabhu's return to Navadvip after taking sannyas. And Guru Maharaj says that was 5 years. He returns after 5 years. So if he takes sannyas in 1509, then that would be 1514. Travels the south for 2 years, so then comes back to Puri for at least another year and a half. If we read earlier in the Antya-lila, we see that Mahaprabhu comes back to Puri in the months just before Rath Yatra. And then Vijay Dasami is later in the year. So perhaps a year and a half, or I don't know exactly. But he makes an attempt to go to Vrindavan, but aborts that attempt. Sorry? So, in answer to your question, he only goes once. Chapter 1, Antya-lila Chapter 1, Srila Rupa Goswami's second meeting with the Lord. So we remember how at the very end of the Antya-lila, we're reading in the last couple of days, how Rupa Goswami had met with Subudhi Rai, the little pastime of Subudhi Rai, and then Rupa Goswami leaves Vrindavan with his younger brother, whose name is Anupam, or Balaba, and they go by the Ganges path, and they miss their other brother, the third brother, the oldest, Sanatana Goswami, coming the other way, heading west, because he's taking a different path. He's taking the main road, the direct route, after being told to do so by Mahaprabhu. So, so their paths don't cross. And Rupa Goswami returns to Bengal to sort out some business. I think it talks about it here, because he leaves some money with a brahmana, with a kind of a brahmana or a shopkeeper. So he returns to sort out some final affairs, and then he visits Mahaprabhu and the devotees in Puri for the first time, and later he will visit a second time before returning to Vrindavan for good. Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakti Vrinda Pangum Langhayate Shailam Mukam Avartayashrutim Yat Kripatam Aham Vande Krishna Chaitanyam Ishwaram. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, by whose mercy even a lame man can cross over a mountain and a dumb man can recite Vedic literature. Durgame patimendyasya skalat pada gater muhu svakripa yastidanena santa santvad avalambaram. My path is very difficult. I am blind, and my feet are slipping again and again. Therefore, may the saints help me by granting me the stick of their mercy as my support. Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhatta Raghunatha Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Das Raghunatha Echaya Gurura Karan Charana Bandhan excuse me Yaha Haite Vignana Sabhistap Puran. I pray to the lotus feet of the 6 Goswamis, Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhatta Raghunath, Shri Jiva Gopal Bhatta and Das Raghunath, so that all impediments to my writing this literature will be annihilated and my real desire will be fulfilled. Jayatam Surato Pangor Mama Mandamatirgati Matsarvasva Padambojo Radha Madana Mohano. Glory to the all-merciful Radha and Madan Mohan. I am lame and ill-advised, yet they are my directors, and their lotus feet are everything to me. Divyad Brindaranya Kalpadrumadha Srimad Ratnagara Simhasanasto Srimad Radha Srila Govinda Devo Prestalibhi Sevyamanos Marami. In a temple of jewels in Vrindavan underneath a desire tree, Sri Radha Govinda, served by their most confidential associates, sit upon an effulgent throne. I offer my humble obeisances unto them. Shriman Rasa Rasarambi Vamsi Vata Tatashtita Karshan Venus Vanir Gopir Gopinata Shri Estuna. Sri Srila Gopinath, who originated the transcendental mellow of the Rasa dance, stands on the shore of Vamsivat and attracts the attention of the cowherd damsels with the sound of his celebrated flute. May they all confer upon us their benediction. Familiar verses, huh? Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gauda Bhakta Vrinda. All glories to Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all glories to Lord Nityananda, all glories to Advaita Acharya, and all glories to the devotees of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Antya-lila Shankshebate Karilun Varnana Antya-lila Varnana Kichushuna Bhakta Gana. I have briefly described the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the Antya-lila. Now I shall attempt to describe something about his last pastimes, which are known as the Antya-lila. Madhya-lila Madhye Antya-lila Sutragana Purva Grante Shankshepete Karyachivanana. I have briefly described the Antya-lila in codes within the Madhya-lila. Ami Jara Grasta Nikate Janiya Marana Antya Kono Lila Karyachivarnana. I am now almost an invalid because of old age, and I know that at any moment I may die. Therefore, I have already described some portions of the Antya-lila, which are chapters 1 and 2 of the Madhya-lila. Purva likita granta sutra anusare ye nahi likita ha likye vistare. In accordance with the codes previously written, I shall describe in detail whatever I have not mentioned. Vrindavana haite prabhu nila chale aila swarupa gosani gode varta pataila. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu returned to Jagannath Puri from Vrindavan, Swarup Damodar Goswami immediately heard news of the Lord's arrival, immediately sent news of the Lord's arrival to the devotees in Bengal. Shuni Satchianandita Sababhaktagan Sabe Mili Nila Chale Karila Gaman. Upon hearing this news, Mother Sachi and all the other devotees of Navadvip were very joyful, and they all departed together for Nilachala. Kulinagrami Bhakta Arayata Kandavasi Acharya Shivananda Sena Milila Sabeasi. Thus all the devotees of Kulinagram and Sri Khanda, as well as Advaita Acharya, came together to meet Shivananda Sen. Shivananda Kare Sabara Gati Samadhana Sabare Palana Kare Deya Vasastana. Shivananda Sen arranged for the journey. He maintained everyone and provided residential quarters. Eka kukura chale Shivananda sane Bhaksya diya lana chale kariya palane. While going to Jagannath Puri, Shivananda Sen allowed a dog to go with him. He supplied it food to eat and maintained it. Eka dina eka stane nadi parahaite udiya navika kukura nachadaya nokate. One day, when they needed to cross a river, an Arisan boatman would not allow the dog to get in the boat. Kukura rahila Shivananda dukhi haila dasa pana kadi diya kukure parakaila. Shivananda Sen, unhappy that the dog had to stay behind, paid the boatman 10 pana of conch shells to take the dog across the river. in that part of India they used conch shells as currency, tiny little conch shells.
Who is Shivananda Sen?
Shivananda Sen is an associate of Mahaprabhu, Parishad, associate of Mahaprabhu. He's a wealthy businessman. And he is also the father of Kavi Karnapura, who some pastimes we'll see later, has a baby. He's just a baby at this time. But later he writes several works, Sri Krishna Chaitanya Charitamrita and Sri Krishna Chaitanya Chandradaya Nataka. These are plays. One of them is a play of Mahaprabhu, and he writes Sri Gaura Ganadesha Deepika, which describes the identities of Mahaprabhu's associates in Krishna-lila. Those are his three main works. And he is the son of Shivananda Sen. But essentially, so Shivananda Sen is one of Mahaprabhu's group of devotees, Bhakti-gana. And his main service, as it's recorded in the literature, was to organize and sponsor the travel of all of the Bengal devotees to visit Mahaprabhu. And they would do this yearly for many years, starting in the year Mahaprabhu returned from South India tour. For many, many years, a group of Bengali devotees would visit Puri, and they would stay for several months from prior to Rath Yatra to a couple of months, 3 or so months afterwards. Like June, July, August, September, those months. And then they'd return to Navadvip. So the journey would take apparently about 10 days to 2 weeks. On foot, partly, some places on foot, some places by boat, and a lot of it I'd imagine by bullock cart or horse-drawn cart. I think bullock carts were quite popular. So they would journey in that way across, and it was kind of what you'd call an international journey as well, because the border from Bengal to Orissa were two essentially different countries. Bengal was a Muslim state, and Orissa was run at that time by Prataparudra, King Prataparudra, who was a Hindu king, or we say more accurately, he was a devotee, Vaishnava. So his state, Orissa, was quite a protectorate for Vaishnavas. Whereas the situation in Bengal, although Hindus devotees could practice their religion, it was always in the atmosphere of the ruling class being of a different religion, of oppression. There was always a little bit of danger there. But anyway, crossing borders sometimes would be difficult, as we see in Sridhar Swami was reading it the other evening. For some reason, I don't know what inspired him to read that, but when Mahaprabhu was leaving on his first journey to go to Vrindavan, and he's being followed by his associates, and he sends them back, including the famous pastime of Gadadhar Pandit being sent back at the banks of the Chitrapala river. But it talks about the negotiations that took place with the chieftain of the province, the immediate neighboring province to Orissa, who is a Muslim and a drunk, so unpredictable, dangerous. Yet he becomes an admirer of Mahaprabhu. He becomes somewhat benedicted, purified by Mahaprabhu, and ends up paying for and facilitating his travel in comfort, builds a new boat for Mahaprabhu, and gives him a competent captain, and takes him through this. There was an area which was infested with pirates, So he sends a company of soldiers in boats. But anyway, that describes how, the political situation could be a little tenuous at times. It wasn't always a safe journey. And of course it was costly in those days. You couldn't there was no Google Maps, you couldn't plan your journey. So Shivananda Sen would take care of all of that. He would cover the entire expense. As it says, he would cover the residential quarters, meaning accommodation along the way. So he'd cover transport, food, accommodation. Those are the three big expenses. So he'd take care of all of that.
So these people from Bengal would leave everything behind them for several months. Family, job, everything. Go just to associate with Mahaprabhu.
Yeah.
Without being working for their families, without doing, let's say, their duty.
Yeah, sometimes you can wonder about that. But all of these. So an important point of context here, piece of context, is that most of Mahaprabhu's associates, these people are Brahmanas. So Brahmanas are fairly flexible in terms of their schedule. They don't work 9-to-5 jobs as such. Whereas a Vaishya may have a business to run. Mm-hmm. Now, you could say maybe Shivananda Sen, he I don't know if he was a Brahmana by caste or a Vaishya. Mm-hmm. But nonetheless, he was a wealthy businessman. So I'm sure he left his business in other person's hands who could manage his business while he was away. Mm-hmm. Whereas the others were Brahmanas, and the role of a Brahmana is that of a teacher. So if they were running a school, then I'm sure they'd have a deputy that could run the school while they're away. Or their students would wait for them to come back. Mm-hmm. And the Brahmanas would make their money. They would do astrology, and they would do ritual services for people, blessings, and teach mantras. And their role was in education, sometimes in medicine as well. In fact, the devotees from Srikant, they were all doctors. So, they would put their lives on hold. Yeah, their priority was Mahaprabhu.
Yeah, I just found it beautiful.
Their priority was Mahaprabhu. So they would all... I'm sure that if you would somehow look at the detail of it, if there was some record available, some might not be able to go 1 year because they have pressing commitments or something. I'm sure there were exceptions. Mm-hmm. But generally, they would prioritize their visit to Mahaprabhu. And, just like someone will drop everything in the interests of meeting the person they love. So it's the same thing. But, with the Brahminical lifestyle and profession, occupation of that time, it's more flexible than someone, let's say, that may have had service responsibilities or business responsibilities. So it worked out well for them. We can see that, so it says here, Kulina Grami Bhakta Arayata Kandavasi. So Kanda refers to this place called Sri Kanda. Vasi is a resident. So the residents of Kulina, which is area of Navadvip, or refers to kind of Navadvip. Kulina Grami, Kulina village, the devotees, Kulina Grami Bhakta Ara, and the Kandavasis, the residents of Kanda, they would all go. Acharya Shivananda, Sene Milila Sabe Asi. So they would meet up with him and all go together with Shivananda Sen. So the devotees of Navadvip, Kulina Gram, and Kulina is separate. But anyway, the point here, is that the devotees from Srikant were doctors. They practiced medicine. Vaidyas. So, any devotees from Srikant? Mahaprabhu's associates from Srikant?
Not off the top of my head.
Narahari, Sakara.
Yeah, right, okay.
and his son Raghunandan, and Mukunda. No, Raghunandan was Mukunda's son. Narahari Sakara's nephew. Narahari Adi Kori Chamaradulaya. We're talking about Narahari here, not Sanjaya Mukunda or anyone else. So Narahari, he's a devotee from Srikand. He's waving the chamara in Mahaprabhu's Aarti. Narahari Adi Kori Chamaradulaya. And the Mahaprabhu's Aarti song. So he's a doctor from Srikand.
Well, again, Srikant, it was part from...
At least he was from a doctor family. Sorry?
Again, Srikant is...
Srikand is it's just a town in Bengal.
Okay.
And for Vaishnavas, it's famous as a place where there was a group of Vaishnavas that lived. So Kulina Vaishnavas and... Sorry, I was getting mixed up with Kulia. But Kulina is there's a different group of Vaishnavas. Kulina, Navadvip, and Kanda. So the Srikand Vaishnavas. And then there's Chiranjeev as well. Sulochan, Chiranjeev, Raghunandan, Narahari. They're the main. And Mukunda, but not Mukunda Datta, not the Mukunda that's in the Aarti song. Narahari of the Aarti song. But not Mukunda Datta. Mukunda Sakara. He doesn't feature so much. But his son Raghunandan is famous.
How exactly did they, like you said, they didn't have Google Maps.
Yeah.
How did they get from Bengal to Jagannath Puri? Like, was there, because, they must have had some great skill in navigation or something.
Yeah, it was quite a mission. 10 days to 2 weeks of walking, bullock carts. People figured it out, like we think about the days before mobile phones. We think, how do we do that? And people had their methods. People had their methods. So, of course, it was more time consuming. It was slower. But there were inns, lodges along the way. There were still people needing to travel between countries. So there were transport services, there were boat services. Wherever there was a service to be offered, money to be made, people would fill that demand. So all of the services were still there. Transport services and accommodation and hospitality services. They were all still there. But just operating at a slower pace. At least the transport would have been operating at a slower pace.
Express bullet card.
But I remember hearing that it took about 10 days. Someone said 10 days to walk it, but I think 10 days by the transport modes of that time. And I imagine there were portions they had to walk, but they wouldn't. They would avoid walking as much as possible, I'd imagine. Not like Mahaprabhu, who was pretty much walking everywhere he would go. Pretty much. Not always, but a lot of the time. Or Raghunath Das Goswami, when he ran away from home and went from Saptagram to Puri. Pretty much like walking at a rapid pace the whole way, hardly eating, just getting there as quickly as possible. So,
do you think Sachimata, she at this time, she's a little elderly, so
she didn't go.
She didn't go? No. Okay.
She never went. She met Mahaprabhu, after taking sannyas, she met Mahaprabhu twice. And one was immediately after the sannyas at Advaita Acharya's house. And then when Mahaprabhu returned to Navadvip. Yeah.
Chronology of all these events is probably at the end of the book.
You mean like a timeline given? Is it? Have you seen it? The Shikshastakam prayers are at the end of the book.
I can find it somewhere on the internet, yeah?
You can find it on the internet, yeah. But it's not part of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. He already gives summaries. But, like dates and chronology were not really part of the literature of India. You know, if you go to a university and you study a historical subject, there's so many dates given. Dates. The timeline is constructed. It wasn't so much, that wasn't considered so important. Dates were given, but not this obsession with creating a chronological timeline. So you won't find that given in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Quite the opposite. For instance, when, and that's partly shown where he is giving portions of the Madhya-lila and the Adi-lila and portions of the Antya-lila and the Madhya-lila. And then even in the Madhya-lila, when Mahaprabhu is going around South India, he says specifically that that this is not chronologically ordered. Saying Mahaprabhu is crisscrossing, sometimes coming back, taking a diversion here, going over there. So the general route is that Mahaprabhu went down the east coast, around the tip of Kanyakumari, up the west coast, through Kerala, and then up to southern Maharashtra, and then back across from west to east. That's the general route he took. But in that main sort of backbone of a route, there are various diversions, and Mahaprabhu would backtrack sometimes, and so Kaviraj Goswami notes that, and he says that, you know, the pastimes given here, so the Chaitanya Charitamrita is really a record of the philosophy of Mahaprabhu and the pastimes of Mahaprabhu. And that's the important bit. The dates and the accuracy of the chronology is not given so much importance. More the content, Mahaprabhu's teachings and his lila.
It's not like a historical, it's not a history book.
Yeah, not in the mundane sense. It's not. It doesn't have an academic focus where people are obsessed about dates and timelines. But this story is very nice, where the dog comes along. The dog comes along for the ride. We'll see. It shouldn't take too long. So we'll read another few verses, because it's a very nice, very quaint and happy pastime. So the devotees are going on their first visit since Mahaprabhu returns from Vrindavan. And while going to Jagannath Puri, Shivananda Sain allowed a dog to go with him. He gave it food and looked after it. One day when they went across a river, the boatman didn't want the dog to get in the boat, and Shivananda Sain paid the boatman extra conchals. Extra money, paid him extra to take the dog. Ekadina Shivananda Gatyale Rakila Kukurake Bata Dite Sevaka Pasarila. One day, while Shivananda was detained by a toll man, busy paying a toll, his servant forgot to feed the dog. Forgot to give the dog its cooked rice. That's what Prabhupada says here. His servant forgot to give the dog its cooked rice. Bata dite. Sevaka. Rations. Prabhupada's translated as rice. Bata dite. Ratre ashi Shivananda bojanera kale kukura panchahe kukura panache bata sevake puchile. At night, when Shivananda Sain returned and was taking his meal, he inquired from the servant whether the dog had gotten its meal. Kukura nahi paya bata shuni dukhi haila kukura chahite dasa manusya pataila. When he learned that the dog had not been supplied food in his absence, he was very unhappy. He then immediately sent 10 men to find the dog. Chahiya na paila kukura loka saba aila dukhi hana Shivananda upabasa kaila. When the men returned without success, Shivananda Sain became very unhappy, and he fasted for the night. Prabhate kukura chahe kanha na paila sakala vaishnavera mane chamatkara haila. In the morning they looked for the dog, but it could not be found anywhere. All the Vaishnavs What chamatkara?
Chamatkara.
Stupa facente.
Very good.
All the Vaishnavas were astonished that the dog had disappeared. Utkantaya chale sabe Antya-lila chale purvavat Mahaprabhu milila sakale. Thus, in great anxiety, they all walked to Jagannath Puri, where Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu met them as usual. Sabalana Kaila Jagannatha Darashana, Sabalana Mahaprabhu Karena Bojana. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went with them to see the Lord in the temple, and on that day he also took lunch in the company of all those devotees. Purvavat Sabare Prabhu Pataila Vasastane Prabhu Tane Prataha Kale Aila Aradine. As previously, the Lord provided them all with residential quarters, and the next morning all the devotees came to see the Lord. Asya dekila sabe se ta kukure Prabhu pashe vasiyache kichu alpaduri. When all the devotees came to the place of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they saw that the same dog was sitting there, a little apart from the Lord. Prasada narikela shashya dena pelana Rama Krishna Hari Kaha Balena Hasya. Furthermore, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was throwing remnants of green coconut pulp to the dog. Smiling in his own way, he was saying to the dog, "Chant the holy names of Ram, Krishna and Hari." Shasyakaya kukura Krishna kahe bara bara dekiya lokeda mane haila chamatkara. Seeing the dog eating the green coconut pulp and chanting Krishna, Krishna again and again, all the devotees present were very much...
Chamatkara.
Again. Always.
There is a lot of it going on.
Wow, it's so beautiful.
Yes. Shivananda kukura deki dandavat kaila dainya kari nija aparada kshamaila. When he saw the dog sitting there in that way and chanting the name of Krishna, so the dog must have been going, Krishna, 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 Hari, Hari, Hari. You'd imagine so. Would have been something like that. I doubt it was like in a human voice. Or maybe it was. maybe it's like Maha Chamatkara. When he saw the dog sitting in that way and chanting the name of Krishna, Shivananda, because of his natural humility, immediately offered his obeisances to the dog, just to counteract his offenses to it. Aradina ke hatara dekana paila siddhadeha pana kukura vaikunte tigela. The next day, no one saw that dog, for it had obtained its spiritual body and departed for Vaikunta, the spiritual kingdom. It's a very cute story.
This is a special dog.
Yes.
Not an ordinary dog.
Yeah. I joined them on their pilgrimage just to see Mahaprabhu and return to Vaikunta. Aiche Antya-lila kare sachiranandana kukurake Krishna kahana karila mochana. Such are the transcendental pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the son of Mother Sachi. He even delivered a dog simply by inducing it to chant the Mahamantra, Hare Krishna. Eta Prabhu Agyaya Rupa Aila Brindavan Krishna-lila Nataka Karite Hailaman. Meanwhile, following the order of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Rupa Goswami returned to Vrindavan. He decided to write dramas concerning the pastimes of Lord Krishna. So then, coming up, we'll get a glimpse into those dramas when certain slokas from the dramas are presented to Mahaprabhu. This is at the portion of the Chaitanya Charitamrita where Rupa Goswami is, we could say, ordained as the head of Mahaprabhu's Sampradaya. In front of...
Oh.
Sorry?
Again?
Rupa Goswami is kind of, you could say, ordained, or... Well, it means endorsed or installed or shown to be officially. And his dramas, his compositions play a part in that. So Mahaprabhu was asking him to read bits of his, or slokas from his compositions, his dramatic compositions. And he is kind of doing it in the company of Ramananda Rai and Swarup Damodar, Mahaprabhu's chief associates, and showing them publicly, showing everyone publicly, particularly his chief, you could say, devotees, the qualification of Rupa Goswami, the eligibility of Rupa Goswami to be the head of the Sampradaya. So we get some very ecstatic verses coming up.
Oh, where did you arrive, Prabhu? So I can...
Sorry?
Where did you arrive in the...
It's verse 35.
Okay,
Those slokas, that's the Lalita Madhava and Vidagdha Madhava, right?
Yeah, chiefly Lalita and Vidagdha Madhavas. He was originally just writing one drama, but then who appeared to him? Rukmini. Rukmini appeared to him in a dream and told him to separate the pastimes. There was some dilemma in his writing. He wanted to write one pastime of Krishna. Krishna's past, Krishna-lila. They both concern Krishna-lila. Lalita Madhava is about Krishna's Dwarka-lila, and Vidagdha Madhava is Krishna's Vrindavan-lila. And I think the dilemma was how to synthesize the two. Anyway, we'll come to it. There was some dilemma, and Rupa Goswami had a dream on his way to Puri, or just after arriving in Puri, one of the two, around that time, where one of Krishna's queens, I believe Rukmini or Satyabhama, had appeared to him and told him to, she said, write a, that's right, she said, write a drama about me. I want to be the centerpiece of the drama. And write a separate drama. And that solved his doubts. Then he wrote, that became the Lalita Madhava.
When you say drama, it's like plays.
Yeah, they're plays, yeah. They can be enacted as dramatic performances. I mean, they're plays, but they're full of philosophical import, full of siddhanta. And we'll see, I mean, they're not published here in the mud, but they're quoted in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Rupa Goswami's works are like the second most quoted source of, the second most quoted materials in the Chaitanya Charitamrita after the Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam, there's some 300-400 verses quoted. And then Rupa Goswami's works, Lalita, Vidagdha Madhava, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, etc. So they're quoted in here. But the Mangalacharana verses are particularly nectarian, because they deal with Rupa Goswami's verses glorifying Mahaprabhu. And we'll come to them in the next few days.
Last question. These days they perform?
I don't remember any incident of that happening. They're more, you could say, plays. Yeah, they could be performed, but they're more poetic compositions to convey rasa. Rupa Goswami's compositions were chiefly rasa filled.
They're very high compositions.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lalita Madhava, Vidagdha Madhava. middleman. There are other works that are considered more confidential. Ujjvala Nilamani and etc. But others were performed, like Ramananda Roy's play that was performed. Jagannath, Priya, I was going to say Priya Natakam, but that's not. Is it something? Nataka. Jagannath. The name escapes me. I was going to say Jagannath Priya Natakam, but that was a play written by one ISKCON Swami. But it's Jagannath Nataka something.
Ramananda play, you said.
Written by Ramananda Roy. Yeah, about the pastimes of Lord Jagannath. Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakti Vrinda. Reading from Revealed Truth by Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev-Goswami Maharaj. Surrendered and Alive with Mercy is the title of the sub-chapter in the chapter Serving Under Proper Guidance. So Mahaprabhu has, on the topic of Ramananda Roy, has been talking about Ramananda Roy and his conversation with Mahaprabhu, that epic conversation that soars to higher and higher levels of bhakti, known as the Ramananda Samvad. And he has rejected the verse. Remember the verse we were talking yesterday about, the Gita verse, Sarvadaman Parityadya Mamikam Saranam Braja Ham Tvam Sarva Papibhyo Mokshishyami Masucha. Rejected that. Jai Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Ki Jai. On the premise, it's rejected on the premise that surrender itself is not the highest objective. Surrender, and then the next stage is activity, positive activity. So surrender may just be neutral. Whereas service fueled by love entails activity, dynamic, loving, devotional service. So this is why the subchapter is entitled Surrendered and Alive with Mercy. Later in their conversation, Ramananda Roy presented another verse to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu which offered an explanation of how one can begin to actively lead a life of surrendered service to Krishna. Jnane prayasa mudapasya namante eva jivanti san mukharitam bhavadiya vartam stane stita shruti katam tanuvan manopir ye prayaso jita pyasitais trilokya. This verse explains, throw away whatever knowledge you have acquired prior to surrendering. Jnane prayasam udapasya. Your mundane knowledge has no place in the plane of transcendental devotion. A surrendered soul should throw out not only his previous knowledge, but also all attempts for acquiring any further mundane knowledge. Then he can submit himself fully and live a life of real devotion. This is the vital point. Namanta eva jivanti. Be surrendered and alive with mercy. Fully surrendered to Krishna and chant his holy name. Stane stita shruti gatam tanuvan manobhir. You can stay in the jungle or a house, an ashram, or the ocean, or anywhere. That's not a problem. Anywhere, any moment, you can engage yourself physically, mentally, and verbally in Lord Krishna's service. The meaning, this means chanting the Lord's holy name, and through that, ye prayaso jitajito pyasitais trilokyam, the Lord himself will be attracted and bestow his mercy upon you. But sanmukharitam bhavadiyavartam, the source of your spiritual connection with Krishna and your practice of service to him is the satam, the sadhu. And without the sadhu's connection, you cannot connect with Krishna, satisfy Krishna, or fully attract his mercy. What you hear from the pure devotee, the sadhu, is the food with which you are alive in Krishna consciousness. What you receive from the sadhu is your very spiritual existence. Jai Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev-Goswami Maharaj ki Jai. Hari Haraya Nama Krishna Yadavaya Namaha Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha Gopala Govinda Ram Sri Madhusudanam Giridhari Gopinath Madana Maharaj Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Sri Advaita Chandra Dadara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jairupa Sanatan Bhatu Raghunatha Shri Jiva Gopala Jai Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Maharaj ki Jai. Jai Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev-Goswami Maharaj ki Jai. Jai Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Rakha Sridhar Dev-Goswami Maharaj ki Jai. Jai Vishnupad Bhagavan Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki Jai. Jai Sri Rupanuga Guru Varga ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Jai. Samveda Vaishnav Mandala ki Jai. Samveda Bhakta Vrinda ki Jai. Sri Chaitanya Saraswati Mat ki Jai. Sri Chaitanya Saraswati Mat West London ki Jai. Sri Harinam Sankirtan ki Jai. Jai Go Premanandi Hari Hari. Ki Boo.